The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order! The Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels, is now in possession. Grudge, we isolate it and then we kill it. Ryan Luis Rodriguez presiding. Will you all please dies for the horrible Grudge Rodriguez?
Be seated. As the Scaretaker said, this is the Reels of Justice, Hell on Reels. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus The Thing, 2011, a, you'll never guess, 2011 sci-fi horror movie that follows a research team in Antarctica as they confront a deadly shape-shifting alien. Sounds like another movie I've seen. For those of you unfamiliar with our spooky court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of the sin of being a bad movie. If so, it shall be cast for all eternity into the fiery pits of movie hell, upon which this courthouse just so happens to be built. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'm going to turn to the jurors here because I want you to consider something. One of the markers we use to determine if a film is good or not is evaluating whether or not it accomplished everything it set out to do. With that in mind, picture the original horror masterpiece, The Thing, in your mind. What is it you like most about The Thing? Mr. Maynard, what is it?
The aliens.
The practical effects of the aliens, I would say. The practical effects.
You want me to play along?
So cool and
practical
unique.
Effects.
Mr. Schlender, what's another thing that was great about the original Thing?
Oh, Kurt Russell is a badass in it.
Kurt Russell and John Carpenter's collaboration, absolutely. And Mr. Rodriguez, do you have a final one to add to the list?
No.
Well, I was looking for paranoia and mistrust. But given that, I put it to you that The Thing, 2011, fails on every single level mentioned here. God, even the title is annoying, because all conversations are now overly convoluted. I think they went with that name just to trick unsuspecting watchers into watching the wrong one. Oh, The Thing. Yeah, I heard about that. That was supposed to be good. The prosecution team and I are seeking damages for lost time, rental fees, and sanity as restitution. The Thing fails on every level here. It fails as a prequel narratively. It fails at capturing the tone. It fails with its bonkers ending that added nothing during the reshoots. And it ruins not only itself, but the original. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. And may I add, do you need a hug?
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Come here. Give me a hug.
No.
Come here.
I'm saving it for later. Later.
Okay, fine. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Miss Kandice Martellaro. Please present your opening statement.
I'd like to begin by saying I'm starting to question if some of the people in this courtroom have ever seen the original John Carpenter's The Thing. Okay.
I was too for a second there.
This movie, I think we should say up top, this is not a movie that ever set out to be great or even a classic. It was always meant to be a nostalgia-driven vehicle to entertain, and it does just that. In fact, I will argue that it does a little more than that even. Now, is it bad? I would argue not. I think this movie was saddled with an uphill battle of living up to the reputation of its predecessor, John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982, something that stood no chance of living up to. It needed to hit every check mark that diehard fans of Carpenter's work would be looking for, while simultaneously being a movie that new viewers would be able to understand and feel engaged with without knowing the previous movie. The movie does both of these things. If you were a viewer who loved the Carpenter film, there are so many references and Easter eggs meant just for you, from brazen references to the original film, down to small, very slight references and just the composition. Now, we're going to hear a lot of things about this film today. We're going to hear how it was received, that it was scored low, a 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'd like to remind you that its predecessor, which objectively is a classic and currently #1 on Letterboxd, was also ill-received, earning scathing reviews, and it was only until years later that it became a beloved classic. I'll ask you to think of this 2011 prequel as the original as achieving what it was meant to do, providing the entertainment that it was supposed to. Thank you.
That was good. 34% you said? I'm still writing that down. I didn't have that on. 34% jurors. Keep that in mind.
You're getting brazen there, Mr. Haslar, but you may proceed with your first exhibit.
The line to me is 33. That's the one.
No. Oh, no. I want to talk about the setup of this. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is an ice paleontologist, which is something I did not know existed. I didn't know that are there no Norwegian paleontologists that they could have gone to? Wouldn't we want to kind of keep this in-house with this big alien craft that they kind of stumbled upon? Why are they going to an American citizen to have it get out? So that is
objection, because she was the best of the best.
Sustained.
I don't know that she was.
I said sustained, God damn it.
That's all right. I got more. So she's working in an office that doesn't at all feel like the 70s. Where are these CRT televisions? Where's the Chessmaster 2000? No, she has a nice monitor that has multiple chromes in it at a time where we only had one chrome, and it has a video feed of her shooting a camera into the dinosaur as she's ice excavating or whatever it is she's doing. The background of this Norwegian base also has all sorts of flat screens and computers on the desk. None of it screams 80s like the original film does. I think this was by design. I think they thought that would make it feel old in some way or dated in some way, when if you're following this film with the original The Thing, since this is sort of a prequel, all of a sudden you're going to get a jarring clash of tones. And lastly, for the setup, I would like to point out that the Norwegians, save for one person, speak English perfectly and seem to prefer it. These are not the same people that we see in the second film or the first film, because this is such a convoluted way in which they decided to do it. I pass to the defense.
Well, to begin with, we wouldn't see them in the first film, which comes later chronologically.
Objection, we do. We see them chasing the dog.
Overruled.
Why do you hate me? It's because I rejected your hug.
Yes, exactly.
Of course.
I would argue that those people, I think actually match up very well. It's just two of them on the helicopter at the end. And I thought they sunk up those two things really effectively. In addition to that, there was an earlier point you made. Now I'm forgetting what it was.
Nice paleontology.
Right. Oh, yes. The 80s nostalgia. You have to keep in mind, this movie was made in 2011. And at that time, everything was running to be cutting edge, new, all that stuff. The wave of nostalgia that we've come to love now was not a thing yet. So I defend this movie in trying to saddle both worlds, of trying to make it seem innovative, but yet of its time.
Mr. Haslar, please present your next exhibit.
I want to talk about The Thing itself. It turns this great suspense and paranoia that was created in the first film, where nobody trusts anyone and you don't even really know who the bad guy is all the time, and you're kind of figuring it out and sort of retrospectively seeing if it all makes sense. And it takes all that and turns it into a creature feature. This film, this monster doesn't sneak in and infiltrate, making everyone paranoid. It literally leaps out of the ice. And then it goes around killing someone nearly every scene that it's in. And it does try to mimic some of those scenes where it's we don't know which one it is. It's not patient or methodical like it was in the first one. And it blows its cover nearly the second someone kind of hones in on it. Is this guy the Thing? And then it just all of a sudden explodes and turns into this giant tooth vagina that's all CGI-y and gummy and fake, and it's nowhere near as creative or innovative as the first one. And then these people show up with flamethrowers, and I know we had flamethrowers in the first one, but I even question that. Is it standard operating procedure to have these on your back? Go ahead.
we're not critiquing the first movie, so continue.
No, we're not. But the point remains that these guys like show up with flamethrowers like within a second, like they had them already strapped on their back. So it's very confusing why both of these Antarctic base, like everyone just seems to have flamethrowers ready to go at any time. I don't know what they're working on that makes this make sense.
It's cold in Antarctica, don't you, Mr. Haslar?
The flamethrower?
Not to mention the aliens.
I looked into it, Mr. Jurors. Yeah. No, a flamethrower is not standard equipment at an Antarctic base. It's not. So you can maybe one-off it with like the American base.
I think you need to read your Wikipedia page a little more closely, because I'm pretty sure it is.
A flamethrower?
I looked it up.
What do you do with a flamethrower?
I didn't look up that far.
It was the 1980s. It's Antarctica. Who's to say?
Exactly. They didn't even have Wikipedia back in the 1980s. Come on, Ben.
I thought this wasn't the 1980s. I thought this was like some sort of weird time hybrid where it's like both 2011 and 1980. Like you can't have it both ways. But either way, I don't know. Like, tell me what they're doing with the flamethrower the moment, like when this thing's infiltrating the base. What was that guy doing with that flamethrower before that?
A lot of sketchy things were happening on this base. Sorry, bear with me. I'm now forgetting names of people.
Take your time.
That's my thing.
Dr. Sander Halvorsen. Look, they don't speak Norwegian very well, so I don't feel I have to either. The doctor in charge of the entire operation, like from the word go, is doing everything sketchy. I completely buy that this guy would have flamethrowers on base just because he's kind of like such a hyper-focused, sadistic guy. So the flamethrowers make sense.
I think the flamethrowers make sense because they're just like saying, hey, they were in the first one, and hey, they were in the thing from another world, so hey, we got to have them in this one, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's a better argument than mine. Go with the prosecution.
It's not a good one. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all, except for like, hey, flamethrowers, cool. All right. Lastly, I would like to go into the ending because they did some like reshoots through this. They kind of found it like a problematic script, so they added the ending where they go into a spaceship. And this spaceship, it works. Like there's a warp core, it's spinning, it's revving up. So escape was an option for the thing this entire time. So after it assimilated the first person, why didn't it just like go right to its ship and escape? Because we had assumed, based on the first one, that this ship had crashed a long time ago, that the ship is inoperable. And the reason it's trying to escape is to leave like Antarctica. It's not trying to leave the planet. So not only does that ruin this film, because like why didn't it just go to the ship after it assimilated the first guy? Why isn't it going to the ship after it's assimilating anyone on the American base as well? Because this is apparently its plan to get off world. And this doesn't match the videos that we see the American team watching in the original, where they're using these thermite charges to kind of uncover the ship. This ship in this film is like in an ice tunnel with a roof above it, and granted it kind of collapses at the end, but it doesn't match like the tone of the first one where they're like blowing it up to uncover it. And I don't know why the Norwegians didn't even bother to explore the ship this whole time if it's fully operable. I mean, I think that'd be like the thing that they'd be a little bit more interested in rather than extracting the thing that had escaped and is to the side of the ship. It indulges in action cliches that don't match the tone of the film going into it, like her throwing the grenade like a football in slow motion. And this kind of solidifies that there's no arc in this movie at all. It just goes around and kills. It's boring. She never learns anything. It's generic. It's like a sci-fi original movie. And she lives at the end, I'm guessing, because they wanted...
Objection.
Yes?
I mean, there's too much money involved in it to feel like a sci-fi original movie.
No, the plot feels like a sci-fi original movie. I'll grant you, it looks like a better version of it, but the CGI still, it's subpar, especially by now standards. It ages terribly. And to make that happy ending, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she lives at the end. So she they very conveniently mention that there's a Russian base, which you'd think, okay, if there were a Russian base that's also in this area, wouldn't the Americans mention that in the sequel? It all doesn't add up. And with that, the prosecution will rest.
Well, I mean, it was the 1980s. We're at the end of the Cold War. Maybe the Americans and the Russians weren't exactly maybe that's not a base we would want to associate
If
with.
all my friends are getting turned into aliens, I think if that's my escape plan, I think I might give them a call.
Maybe we suspect the Russians are at the core of it all.
Then they would say that.
Aliens!
At the
They
core,
would say that.
pun
No, objection.
intended.
Objection. No, they would say that if that's the case. Like, oh, it's those damn Ruskies that sent this loose on us. They wouldn't say nothing about it.
I think they say Ruskies.
Hold on. Sorry, cut this out.
No.
Okay, cut.
Keeping all this. We love to show people struggling.
I should really.
Lights
take...
are pretty hot, aren't they, Candice?
I was like,
pretty hot.
I know. I should really take notes while you're talking, and I'd be a terrible lawyer.
I'm a terrible judge, and I wasn't
That's what
taking
they
notes.
do.
Now, of course, we have to keep all this in because we bantered about it too much.
Okay.
He made a lot of points there, so you can
did.
just respond to anything you want at that point.
Well, essentially, like the alien ship at the end is a reshoot, and it doesn't match what happened at the beginning.
Right. Do we know? Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Do we know this? This is the dumbest point I could possibly make. Do we know this is a ship that's the same ship that the Americans find? Who's to
Yes,
say
we do.
there's not more?
Yes, we do. We do know that.
Do you think that's a safe assumption?
Okay, fine, fair enough. Maybe
Otherwise, there's just two ships and two different things, and they're just running around bumping into each other occasionally.
What are the odds?
Wait, no, I remember now. The whole point is it can split off into different things. The whole time, I believe it is trying to get to its ship, and the human beings keep stopping it to save ourselves.
In which film? In this
both.
film or the?
I would argue both.
I would argue not in the original, because the original was like trying to cozy up with anyone who's like going to escape on a helicopter, not on the ship itself. So unless its plan was to then like commandeer the helicopter and fly to the spaceship, I don't know that holds water.
Well, that's valid, but perhaps it was trying to. The ship didn't work out, so now it's trying to commandeer a helicopter.
Oh well, I can't go home. I guess I'll just see what America's all about. That might be cool. I don't know.
I was just
Kind
gonna
of a bummer about my ship being
Going to the
burned up,
mall, just turning into random people at the Orange Julius. It sounds fun.
I always read both films as it wants to spread as much as it can. Getting its ship was to complete whatever its original mission was, which was to come here and spread as far as possible. It's just the thing is apparently not very smart and picked the most isolated part of the world to land.
But if any of them are like in any of those scenes where they're like, hey, which one of you is the thing? Like, why is the thing even there? You know, if it's trying to get back to a ship, that's your opportunity to leave.
Valid. It is a virus, however. So I always took it as it's going to spread wherever it can, how much it can. And the ship is just a means of getting to the most populated place it can get to, as is helicopters, as are helicopters.
Well, okay, let's say it is doing that. It's trying to spread and take over Earth. Then why is it going back to the ship? Why wouldn't it try to take over the entire base first?
I mean, I believe it's doing both. It's split off. It's tearing people apart, but then it does also take over the doctor and drives to the ship. But I think it's been trying to do both.
I don't think our jury will buy it.
Okay, well, we're getting into a circle here, but Mr. Haslar has rested his case, unless you have anything else to say.
No, I have.
Okay. Mr. Haslar has rested his case. Ms. Martellaro, you may proceed with any further exhibits that you have.
Okay, one main point I would like to keep in mind is what this movie was doing socially at the time. Plot and everything aside. We have to keep in mind this came out, I believe, very shortly after Catherine Bigelow had won Best Director for the movie The Hurt Locker, being the first woman director.
2 years later, yes.
2 years later, yes, thank you. So, thus came, and this movie, I believe, was at the helm of it, the wave of female-empowered action stars, rebooting the thing, or not rebooting, but creating a prequel and allowing a woman to do that. And it's a heavy narrative throughout the movie. That matters. The other thing, as I mentioned in my opening statements, is that this movie was held in a weird suspension of trying to live up to the nostalgia of the first one while standing on its own as the second one. And I feel it executes this very well. We have a reference to the original iconic scene where they do the test in the Petri dish with their blood. They start to set up where we think they're going to just repeat that scene again, but it's a clever misdirect where instead the whole test gets demolished by the thing. And instead, she comes up with the whole thing of realizing it can absorb inorganic matter and goes to everybody's tooth fillings, which then sets up a barometer that we can use for the rest of the film to try to gauge who might be the thing and who might not be, giving her something to work with.
Mr. Haslar, say something negative about Catherine Bigelow. I dare you.
I will not, but I don't see that there's female empowerment happening in this movie. I'd like to see more of it. The narrative doesn't lend itself to that. There's no arc for her to take. There's no reason for her to be here other than to sort of recreate things from the original movies. And recreating things from the original movie isn't hard. You know, that John Carpenter already did all the hard work. Like, hey, Petri dish, all you have to do is grab a couple of those and throw in a couple of lines and boom, you got your nostalgic, ooh, it's just like that scene in the other thing that I recognize. It's not hard work. It's not clever. And as for the fillings, I do like that this is a different team and they're like coming up with a different solution, but I can't believe that the fillings would not have come up on the American base, that none of them would have had fillings on, because it seems like it would have.
They just brush very regularly, and they don't need to worry about that.
We all know Americans have better teeth than Norwegians. No, I'm
especially in the 80s, right?
Totally, yeah. I remember an earlier point I wanted to make. I'm circling back. I can do that in this courtroom, I believe.
Absolutely, go for it.
As many circles as you want.
Thank you. To your point about one of the things I find so interesting about this movie is coming in and knowing absolutely everybody is going to die. Now, granted, I do understand the end. They leave her alive. However, I never read that as her surviving. I don't think that is definitive. I believe that it is meant to be open-ended the same way McCready and, oh my God, I'm forgetting Keith David's character.
Childs?
McCready's the only one you need to know. Yeah, Childs.
McCready and Childs at the end of the thing where it's left of do they make it or do they not? I saw Katie as doing the same thing.
I would argue that this was meant to make more of a happy ending rather than a bummer, because I think it tested poorly with audiences. Also, it leaves yourself open for a sequel. Hey, here's the movie of her going to the Russian base rather than having a story that like concludes her arc.
I believe you mean Betweequel?
Ooh.
Betweequel.
Have we talked about Betweequels yet? Yes, we have. Cool. It's within continuity.
It's been coined.
Betweequel. I agree to disagree. Back to your point about it not being female-driven, I would argue otherwise. In fact, I would even say it's almost, well, I won't say that. It's pushed very hard that it's female-driven to the point where Katie is known to be the best of the best, to the point where they seek her out. They have to fly her 10,000 miles to go do this. And then she gets there and is completely undermined. The only woman in charge, one of only two women in the whole the whole team. And at one point, the doctor says to her, "You're not here to think. You're here to get a thing safely out of the ice. I hope we understand each other." To me, it's driven home very hard of like, no, you're just a woman. And she's meant to feel like I've got to take over and take control. I think it's very female driven. And I would argue it's female driven in the same way as the movie Alien.
How does he expect her to dig if she can't think?
Yeah, you're having it both ways. You're like saying she's like the best person in the world, and also, hey, you're just a woman. So it's like, what narrative, which one are you going with? You have to pick one. You can't have it both ways.
I mean, we're supposed to, as the audience, feel infuriated by that. That's very intentional.
They went to go get her, and then they don't use her advice. That makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't, but it's not meant to. That's not a mistake on the movie's part. You're meant as the audience to be going like, what is wrong with this man? In my opinion, it kind of captures what it feels like to be a woman.
Yeah, say something about that, Ben.
Ben! I would love to hear what Ben thinks.
It's one of the bad ones, Candice.
Not all men.
Oh God, we got a hashtag trending now. Oh boy. Ms.
Not all
Martellaro,
Bens. Not all Bens.
I like
please
not all
proceed with
Bens.
your next exhibit if you have one.
Let me check my notes. The last point I wanted to call out was, and it's been already somewhat addressed, was just that I thought the connective tissue between the first one, or between the 2011 one and the original, worked perfectly. I felt that, I know it's shoehorned in during the credits, but I did think it worked. We have the character Lars, who's, I think, objectively meant to be the character that no matter what, we all kind of rally around. He's just like a good guy. Coming out, we know his dog died at the beginning. We're sad about that. So when we see his dog, we know that's it. That's the thing. He sees the other guy, tries to attack him. They get on the helicopter. And to me, it matches up almost shot for shot to the opening of the original.
It does. I wouldn't argue that it matches the original, though, because, again, the technology doesn't match. And I don't think that the narrative matches, because like the Norwegians that we see in the other film, they speak Norwegian. They prefer to speak Norwegian. So it's kind of weird that just those two Norwegians are the ones that make it to that base, because we can't stand to have subtitles in this film. That would just turn people off. No, they all got to be perfect English-speaking gentlemen.
Maybe they just wanted to trick the Americans or didn't want them to know their secrets, so they were speaking Norwegian.
Dog, don't let them know, dog, no.
we don't want them to know that their safety's at risk and that we want to stop this from spreading. I got nothing. I am pleading the fifth.
Okay, interesting way to end, but I guess that's just how things work out. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
I'm going to hide the court transcript when I'm finished. If none of us make it, at least there will be some kind of record. I believe the Thing is a thing of the original Thing, and thus must be torched in the flames of movie hell. I think that that's evident. The problem is that one of the jury may have become a thing by the thing of the Thing. Even if we torch the thing of the Thing in movie hell, the Thing in the jury room will still attempt to make two more things of the Thing. And so, jury, I suggest this simple test. The Thing will try to protect the other thing. So if you see one trying to protect the Thing to assuage their suspicion, be suspicious of them. Get this person out into the open. If anyone's voting not guilty, they must be tested. Be careful in there, jurors. It could be any one of you. The scare taker will probably hand out flamethrowers because we now know that that's standard protocol. None of us trust anyone's, and we're all very tired.
Those arguments need a... Oh my god. Oh my god.
It makes perfect sense. Just play back. Play back. It makes sense.
Ms. Martellaro, please present your closing argument.
I would like to start by saying I don't really know what was said just now in the prosecution's closing argument.
We need a diagram for those arguments.
Just sung it.
We have heard many things said about this movie today. I would like to point out a few points that contradict what the prosecution has been telling you. One, he slammed the movie for being a creature feature. I would like to point out that the original The Thing was an adaptation of a creature feature. That does not make this movie bad. Also, the point that, and I'm not saying where the source came from, but the point that Norwegians don't speak English has come up multiple times. It is a fact that 88% of Norwegians do speak English. So there is that.
Oh.
And I think it is worth putting on the record that, as I said up top, this movie had an uphill battle. It was meant to be nostalgic for the original one while standing on its own and holding up to the standards of horror movies at the time that it was made. It was pretty much an impossible task. And to audiences that saw it, I would argue it was entertaining for the time period that it played. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. I know I'm human, Ryan Luis Rodriguez, you have all heard the spooky facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of the sin of being a bad movie and will therefore be condemned to the depths of movie hell. The scare taker will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Fright this way! It's the last day Hell on Reels is in possession. I really hate to lose the gig, but my doctor told me I need to be exercised more regularly.
Are we gonna throw the scare taker into hell when this is over?
Really doubling down with that laugh. Oh my god, is your throat okay?
He lives in hell.
So when we open up for the season, he shambles out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like that.
And then he goes back. Unless we need him for a joke. And in which case he is available at any time I need.
Anytime we need. Oh, I freaking love it. All right, guys. Our last Hell on Reels. Are we going to send this one to hell, or are we going to spare it? These are the questions that keep me up at night screaming. I thought we had two strong cases here. I mean, like the thing with The Thing is it's going to be compared to The Thing, and you know how I feel about it when movies invite that comparison. It would be negligent not to make it. So I thought Ben made up some good points there, but I think
they could have called this A Thing.
I think Kandice, though, also brought up, like, it was supposed to be a nostalgia bomb, cool trip of a movie, like with the Easter eggs and things like that. And, I don't know if that's enough to cut the mustard. I have no particular super love for the original Thing. As we all know, my position on John Carpenter is he's a hack, but The Thing is probably his best movie. So, Mary, I'd like to hear what you have to say about the case.
Well, I did double check Kandice's research, and according to Languages of Norway on Wikipedia, as of 2013, very close to this, there were 4.5 million English speakers, 88%. And considering all these guys are scientists, they're absolutely going to be educated. They're all going to speak English. They're clearly going to speak English to the English-speaking Americans when they want to. I'd have to watch it back to see if they choose to speak Norwegian when they're alone.
Well, here's the thing. In Scandinavian countries, English is very well spoken. English is the language of science. It's the language of business. So, like, if a Scandinavian was doing business in France, the Frenchman and the Scandinavian speak English. I'm friends with dozens of Swedes. They all speak nearly perfect English. So that part didn't bug me too much just because of my personal history with Scandinavians.
And it makes sense that the guy who doesn't would be he's kind of the manual labor, right? He's kind of the dog guy is in the other one.
Yeah, so that part didn't particularly bug me, but I don't think that makes or breaks the case one way or
It's
the
funny
other.
because I think this one is. I actually used to like this one. I think until I saw it this time, until I really close watched it, I used to think it's not that bad. But the things Ben brought up, like how it doesn't try very hard to hide itself. I mean, like in the helicopter, it's not even caught yet. It could have let the helicopter land and gone back inside and taken its chance. Instead it morphs out, and it eventually just be. I was thinking today that it is kind of just like a high budget sci-fi channel, like movie. Like that's what it is. But it is a higher budget, but it's just the monster openly walking around with tentacles, and that's not what's cool about The Thing. And it's funny to think that this is it's almost kind of an assimilation of the first Thing. It's a weak clone of it, down to Joel Edgerton, supposed to look like MacReady. I don't know his partner's name, but he's wearing Child's like exact white sweater. Like, so, so both black guys are wearing white sweaters at the same time. And there's tons of things in this movie that they do like that. What I did like,
Billy Ocean made it very popular.
What I did like in the defense that Kandice said is the fillings point is good. To Ben's point, why didn't they think of it in the second movie? They're dumb because it's exactly a perfect point. It wouldn't be able to replicate fillings. It's a great way to catch it. It's actually a better way to catch it. And I kind of forgot that it's not in the old movie. Because I
would argue that's the best part of the movie is that little wrinkle to it.
Yes. Ben had a lot to say about the tension between the main scientist and our lead. And I do have to agree that I think they should not have had that guy be the one who goes and contacts her in the beginning. Right? Like, they should have just brought her to the base. And that's when she meets this guy who's constantly rebuffing and insulting her. But the fact that he reaches out and sees that she's good, he has no reason to doubt her. So it doesn't come off as, he's not an authentic bad guy. And then when he's an alien, he's scowling. Let's hear from Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you got, bud?
This movie is a gentleman's 5.
Ooh.
Therefore being the best movie we've covered in Hell on Reels this year.
Wow!
Yes, I have a specific bit of nostalgia for this kind of movie. Like 2011 is like the last time you could go see a mid-budget horror movie that was actually shot on film that actually had some practical effects. Yes, they do use a lot of CGI, but a lot of it is augmentation. And I still like the way that it looks. It bugs me that it's constantly handheld cameras, because Carpenter was known for his Panaglide and very economic and fluid motions, and I wish that they had retained that, although I don't want them to be chasing Carpenter the entire time. And I absolutely adore Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Literally anytime she shows up in any movie or television series, it's the high point of that movie or TV series. And I don't hate this movie. I acknowledge all the things that Ben said are not incorrect. They're, good points. But at the same time, I also really agree with what Kandice is saying. So I'm split literally right down the middle.
Wow. Into a horrible tentacle monster?
Oh, you know it.
I mean, these flamethrowers are pretty cool. Maybe I'll just zap your hand with it real quick, and we'll see.
Go for it. Go for it.
I definitely think they're going to have flamethrowers in the Arctic base. I mean, they need to. If they get iced over and the doors won't open, they need to blast those doors and melt them open.
Oh no, you're exactly right. Like there was an episode of Top Gear where they're in the northernmost part of Denmark driving a humongous snowplow, and it had a flamethrower on it for specifically that kind of stuff. And so it makes sense to me. There's flamethrowers.
And I did like Winstead, but she's gonna be fine the whole time because she.
I gotta agree with Ben. I hate the sequel bait at the end. To me, so I know Kandice.
Oh no, actually, that's another one of my favorite parts is the end.
No, she countered saying it's supposed to be redolent of the first one, but to me, it reeked of sequel bait. To be honest with you, I didn't see that as the homage. So I agree with Ben on that.
You don't mean the helicopter stuff at the ending. That I like. You mean?
Oh no, the helicopter stuff at the end.
Okay. You mean the Edgerton kill?
Yes, killing Edgerton and then presumably living. Yes,
I agree.
So I bought Ben's interpretation of that.
One thing that the Carpenter movie establishes is that the Thing doesn't seem to actually care about preserving someone else. So if they were both things, I don't know that she necessarily still wouldn't have killed them. But that's not great. Yeah, I would prefer to leave it more open ended of whether she is a thing or not.
But so all right, I think we've said a lot. I think it might be appropriate to start locking in.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to say too about the argument with the ship. I always assume the Thing doesn't know how to pilot the ship. It's not its ship. It cloned someone whose ship it is.
Or maybe it was a prisoner on the ship and it busted out.
Yeah, or anything. But to me, it does not know how to pilot it, which is kind of always what bugged me about Doc being able to fix it in the Carpenter one. What does he know about intergalactic travel? He's a fucking doctor. But yeah, let's start locking it in.
All right, Maynard.
Ryan first.
Great. I know, because you always have to go first. That's why I was teasing you. Ryan, what do you got for us, brother?
Okay, split down the middle. Bases are loaded. Ryan is going to say, not guilty.
Whoa, okay. Maynard, bases are loaded. Split down the middle.
Okay, I think before I rewatched this movie yesterday, I would have said, yeah, it's fine. It's a fun I don't think I even would. I still think it's fun, but it's like Sci-Fi Channel fun. But the fact that the monster doesn't try to hide the way it used to, it seemed to lose what makes the Thing scary and just turn into just a monster running around. And the monster doesn't look great, and I don't like the CGI in it. I do like the filling stuff. I do like it being a prequel. But I want to keep this one interesting, so I'm going to toss it to you, Schlenzo, and I'm going to say guilty. Hell needs another soul. So,
all right, very good. Okay, two strong cases here, but at the end of the day, I gotta say I was just more swayed by Ben's arguments. I do think, the language point is a small point. Kandice really dinged him on the little stuff, but the broader view of this, the alien doesn't make as much sense as it made in the first one. And whenever you're inviting that kind of comparison, you have to make it, and it comes up short. Hopefully Joel Edgerton's done trying to be a thing. I mean, this was, several years ago. I never cared for him much as an actor. I mean, the acting didn't come up, but I thought all the acting was pretty poor in this anyway. But that's neither here nor there. We've got a guilty verdict. Let's go out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus The Thing, 2011, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
Boo!
The verdict is so rendered. The Thing is hereby sentenced to the fiery pits of movie hell or whatever the fuck. Is anyone listening? Does anyone care? Court is adjourned.
I care.
This is Mumbly Mumblerson, the real Mumbly Mumblerson, obviously, right outside the courthouse for the Reels of Justice. Kandice Martellaro, would you mind telling us how you feel about the jury's verdict?
I'm disappointed, I gotta say. An injustice has happened here today. I'm going to collect my notes and see what we can do for acquittal. I'm just throwing it out there. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't give a rat's ass because I'm mumbly, and I don't give a rat's ass about nothing. Hey, Big Ben Haslar, how'd you think about that jury's verdict?
Oh, vintage mumbly. Can't tell you from any other mumblies. You are the distinct.
I'm the real mumbly, you know.
Real mumbly.
I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually kind of like this film. I think it's a gentleman's 6. I don't love it. There is plenty that's wrong about it, and I can understand why it didn't get a sequel. I did enjoy the spirited debate with Kandice, though. It's a lot of fun. I love talking about these kinds of films, but ultimately, I'm kind of gratified that I won the case. And I'm glad I didn't give Ryan a hug either, because I think he was the thing in the jury room, so that was lucky.
Well, you're a big jerk face, and I'm very charming because I'm very rude to everyone. And that's all the time we have from the Reels of Justice. We'll get back to that little post-trial analysis.
That's
this is
not
Mumbly, the real Mumbly.
Like you son of a bitch.
No, I sound exactly like you.
What? 2 Mumblies?
Well, which one? One of us has to be the real Mumbly.
Which one do I have to shoot? I don't know which one to shoot.
It's not me. Shoot him. He's irritated.
Shoot me. I'm the real Mumbly. The real Mumbly would want you to shoot him.
I was gonna say the real Mumbly would want you to shoot him.
The real Mumbly would want me to shoot both of you. Bam, bam. There. Case dismissed.
But if there's
Mumbly's dead again, then, along with the very other real Mumbly.
Yeah, no, wait. I'm looking at the corpse outside the window now. That's turning into some horrible monster thing. I think we dodged a bullet on that one, Maynard.
You're right, it's turning into Mumbly.
I'm now assimilating everybody.
Wait,
You killed-
Mumbly was the thing? I'm confused now.
You killed neither Mumbly because you used a gun and not a flamethrower.
I heard him go, and I was like, why did he do that?
Because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Because unlike working in an Antarctic base, I didn't have a flamethrower, and I do disagree with you guys on that. That makes no sense.
We
Why
don't
this guy
keep
would have it
flamethrowers
ready
around
to go.
here. That is
He
true.
had it ready to go. It was on his back already. He wasn't out like.
Okay, I will
de-icing
give
the
you
door.
that. I don't know why he would have it at the ready necessarily, but I
He
do
does. He
understand
runs and
why
gets
there
it
would
in the
be.
first.
If
I
they
would
showed
play
him
with
like
it all the
de-icing the
time.
door or saying, "Hey, let me go get my flamethrower," then I'd buy it. And that's all they.
Well,
had
we
to
don't
do.
need flamethrowers here because the goddamn court's built on top of hell. But great case, Kandice. What's been keeping you busy? What have you been up to lately?
I've been doing a lot of things. I've been writing for a YouTube channel called Cece's World. I shot a horror film that I'm hoping to. It's not a struck thing, but I'm waiting till the SAG strike is done to announce it. But we can announce it here. It's fine.
Ooh, perhaps by
yeah.
the time this airs, it will be.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
You got a Sclusy. I love Sclusies.
Yeah, and that's kind of been it over here.
Oh, cool, awesome. Are you allowed to tell us the title of that movie or just its existence?
Yeah. No, it's called Don't Bring It In. And
Okay.
it's about a woman brings home a Ouija board and her boboyfriend doesn't want her to bring it in, and a ghost starts talking to them and chaos ensues.
I
Oh,
dig
I
it.
like it.
I like Ouija
What's it going to
board
release
ones.
on?
I'm just going to try to hit the festival circuit with it first and
Oh, gotcha.
Cool.
see what I can
Will
share. But
it be PG-13? Because I know a little girl who loves Ouija boards.
Yes, I would say it's PG-13, and it ties in TikTok true crime is a running narrative through it. So yeah,
she'll get into that when she's allowed to use the internet, I'm sure.
Well, your favorite
she loves
never allowed to use the internet.
Well, that's why she's not allowed to use Ouija boards because she can only talk to strangers, so she has to wait.
Exactly.
But no, that's
actually.
Cool.
Quick funny story about the kids when Maynard and I watched the original thing with the kids and the dog's running and they're shooting at it. My daughter's like, why are they trying to shoot the dog? And my little son just very nonchalantly, I don't know, maybe the dog's the monster.
And it was.
No
way, that's the first
time.
I
don't know, maybe Bruce Willis is dead. He's the only one that can talk to him. I don't know.
He did things like that, yeah. Or like when the what is the 50th time they shot the Black Scorpion, he's like, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Anyway, anything else going on, Kandice, that you want to tell us about?
I'm not at the moment.
Good. We don't deserve it, honestly.
Just
we got a exclusive. What else do you want?
We already did get a exclusive.
I
make sure I was covering everything.
Is that a real word, or are we just making
it is now? Exclusive, Betweequal.
I love Betweequal. I love exclusive. What can I say?
You know what? I genuinely thought when you said that, I was thinking you guys, like, your podcast won an award. I thought it was like a Webby or a Streamy.
No, I just pull this stuff right out of my butt.
It is now.
I was like,
you need to doctor that, like, on our banner, like, you know, like we.
I wouldn't want to accept any award that would consider us.
I'm not holding you to that.
I was genuinely about to be like, congratulations, you won a exclusive.
I would. We did now the first annual. Kandice Martellaro Exclusive Awards. And we're very honored to have been even considered.
And it does sound really cool too. We do look forward to watching that.
Oh, thank you. And actually, if I can speak freely now,
absolutely.
I want to share that I went through the same thing Maynard did. That I saw this when it came out in 2011, and I think what happened is I went in with my expectations super low because I loved the first one. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that wasn't bad. And therefore it's good. And it just locked in my memory that way. And I hadn't seen it since. And then when I rewatched it to like put my notes together for this, I was like, I've made a mistake.
Oh, no. And I'm on defense too. Oh, geez.
I love that.
That's happened to all of us.
I think you nailed all the strengths though. You know,
thank you. There were not many.
I do think that Mary Elizabeth is that was right. Winstead,
yeah.
That's her first two. Okay,
yeah.
Was really great. I would have liked to see her do a more of a Ripley thing where she was kind of not the main character, but like not at first, right? She's
becomes the main character as
she's a subordinate in the beginning.
The Trojan horse character,
right? Yeah. Exactly. I wish she was a little bit more like that, where it turns out, oh, she's incredibly competent, and that's why she's surviving while everyone else is fucking up around her.
I just rewatched Alien. It's so good.
Yeah,
God, it's so good.
No notes, really.
Yep. So we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see, since it is still spooky season till Thanksgiving. So we're still asking for spooky or scary or horror movies. So what is a movie that people should see?
Okay, I'm gonna share an opinion that's gonna be what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial. Yes,
we love it.
Okay, so I just saw Five Nights at Freddy's, and like many, was disappointed. So, what I recommend if you want to see Five Nights at Freddy's is watch a movie that came out, I want to say 2 years ago, called Willy's Wonderland.
Yep.
With Nicolas Cage. He doesn't say a word the whole movie. He's just a security guard that loves pinball that's fighting evil Chuck E. Cheese like animatronics. I think that movie is the better Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes, yeah, which I think is, and the comparisons were drawn when it came out, though.
That's because they were in development of Five Nights at Freddy's, but it was in development hell, so they had the opportunity to pivot and basically rip it off 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah. No, it's 100% that. It is Ants versus A Bug's Life, but in this case, Ants is better. Yeah.
Wait, Ants is
because that's definitely not what it's like in the real world. God, no.
No, Ants versus A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life is better, but
sweetie.
This is
all right. I don't even know if I've seen Ants. I don't know.
You don't need to see
Is that Woody Allen and Sylvester Stallone?
Yes.
What a ridiculous movie it is.
Ants wasn't great when it came out, and it has aged worse. So
No.
All right, I gotta watch it then.
Like a fine milk.
That'll be Schlender's recommendation next week, I can tell you. So we'll just cut it out right
my
now.
Sylvester Stallone impression. Or my Woody Allen. No,
That's terrible. They're both terrible. Beautiful Ben, what have you got for us?
Every year I do a marathon of some kind around Halloween. It's usually a sub-genre of horror, but this year, Reels ate up a lot of the earlier weeks. It's November, of course, throughout all of this.
It is November, Ben.
So terribly. It's November because it is November. This marathon I did was like family Halloween movies, which means it must be a family film and it must take place on the holiday of Halloween, which excludes a lot of other films that people consider favorites, like Hotel Transylvania or Young Frankenstein. So what I liked about those crazy rules is that it includes a lot of those ones that aren't going to be recommendations, but do take place on Halloween. So I'm going to recommend Song of the Sea, and I'm looking forward to seeing that recommendation with Song of the Sea and that cute little girl in that animation up there on the Twitter or on the X or on the don't go to X. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. The Secret of Kells is similarly fantastic, and I'm sure the third one is as well that Dylan already recommended on this, but I'm not paying for that Apple TV.
Wolfwalkers,
yeah. It's on Apple TV or in a $70 box set, and I ain't paying for that. But the animation here is top notch. Hand-drawn frames always seem to capture a more emotive feel and have warmth to them that computer-generated films just haven't seemed to be able to do yet. And the music, too, is very atmospheric and draws you in. I love stories that are based on folklore as well as real emotions in a fantastical setting. I often feel like modern films kind of pull their punches in that regard, often making kids, just go on fun rescues and stuff like that, and they don't think they can deal with like real stories. Animation can be more than just something to put on to put the kids busy. It's a medium that can tell diverse things in interesting ways. And it takes place on Halloween, despite only having 40 or so seconds of kids in masks in it.
Fantastic recommendation. That studio.
Man, I butchered that beginning, though.
Is that Happy Valentine? Is that the only 3 they've done so far?
I think so. They might have.
It's considered a trilogy. It's like the Irish folklore trilogy. I don't know. They've done like Breadwinner, right? That's the same group.
Okay.
I'd have to look more into it, to be honest with you.
Candice, have you seen these?
I have not.
Irish Pixar.
It sounds amazing, and I also don't
compare them to Pixar. They're better.
Or is it Irish Studio Ghibli?
I'd say Irish Ghibli is.
Sorry,
more I like that. I like that.
Pixar's lost their way.
Jiggly, because they jig because they're Irish.
Okay. You know
Studio
what?
Jiggly. All right, Ryan.
It's no betweequel. It's no betweequel. Keep workshopping it.
I can't shit out gold every week, Ryan.
My spooky recommendation this week is the directorial debut of Reanimator producer Brian Usna, 1989's Society. It follows a Beverly Hills high schooler played by Billy Warlock, the greatest actor name ever, who begins to suspect that there's something wrong and perverted with his family and the community at large, only to discover the corrupt underbelly of, yes, society, which gets more twisted as this nightmare progresses, ending with an event called the Shunt that may be the most disgusting thing ever committed to celluloid. Usna's film perfectly captures the political revulsion of the Reagan-Bush era, which I guess makes it fitting that it didn't actually release in the States until Clinton took office, and its unique blend of black comedy, remarkable gross-out special effects from Screaming Mad George, and upsetting dream logic is worth the price of admission. Society is currently streaming on Canopy. Support your local library.
Do that, but screw up your beginning more so I feel more at home.
I'll try to screw up my beginning for you, Ben. My recommendation this week has been receiving some negative reviews upon its release, maybe like our defendant here today, because it's being held up against its predecessor. And maybe I'll find myself defending it in this very courtroom one day, 2023's The Exorcist Believer. After 2 young girls go missing for 3 days, they return possessed by a demonic force.
Oh, no.
Despite the negative reviews, I really didn't think it was all that bad. It doesn't reinvent the Exorcist subgenre or anything, but it's completely competently made and performed. And I think the element of having 2 possessed girls this time, only one of which can survive, according to the demon, pitting the 2 families' interests against one another, creates suspense as you wait for which side will cave to the demonic pressure first. Plus, Ellen Burstyn delivers as strong a performance as a 90-year-old can be expected to give. And I was just tickled pink to find that Linda Blair is still alive. She was a teenage alcoholic, you know. I'm not entirely sure the continuity of this within the franchise. Not sure director David Gordon Green knows just yet either, based on his interviews. But it certainly is a sequel to the first one in the least. But how much of the other film's lore it chooses to incorporate in the future, that may determine whether this one's a requel or a bootcon or what.
Bootcon.
But knowing that we have 2 more sequels to look forward to, I think we'll be looking back fondly on this first entry, the way we look back fondly on Halloween 2018. Hey, that wasn't so bad. Remember that one? Things were still okay then. Think about it, won't you?
Boo.
Now, Schlenzo, you got to send us on home. And oh wait, actually, Candice, you did defend. You defended. Was it Ends? You did.
Ends.
I did. I defended Halloween Ends.
So, have you seen his next film? Have you seen Exorcist Believer?
I can't bring myself to do it. Yeah, no.
Wise move. Wise move indeed.
Oh, it's
new movies are terrible. There's just
it's just fine. It's fine enough. I mean, you that's the problem. Don't you can't compare it to the first one. You know, that's not fair.
Then why make a sequel?
If they
need to make something, you know?
Well, then just make a demon exorcism movie. Don't call it The Exorcist if you don't want the
Linda
comparison.
Blair needs money. Now,
it's like the Pope's Exorcist, right? They put a twist on it with Russell Crowe.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And they do. They have 2 girls. I just said that. 2 girls, 1 demon. There's an online video about it.
Mind blowing 2 this time. It's even 2-sier.
Exactly. It takes 2, baby. It's the
2 girls,
takes
1
2.
demon.
Yes, I just already made that
If
joke.
you thought 1 was terrifying,
late.
2 should be more terrifying. That's my script.
Schlenzo, you have to send us on home for the whole season with a good Living Scarecrow movie. I know you can do it. You've been working up to it the whole season. You are ready with a great Living Scarecrow movie. Send us on home, baby.
All right. Unfortunately, none of that's going to happen. I am so sorry because you see, my friends, my dear bouncing Bobby Lapierre, he did say he was sorry when he told me about Blood Harvest 2023. He pinged me personally, as we're good friends, and he said, Blood Harvest is on Amazon Prime. You're welcome, and I'm sorry. I click it. I look at the screen. A scarecrow. Perfect. This will be my final recommendation because I got it mixed up with Dark Harvest last week, as you recall. So, Bobby.
Boobala.
There is no living scarecrow in this movie, despite it being on the cover. I'm really not sure what this movie is about, and frankly, ending on this fizzle of a feature is very fitting for this season, so I am washing my hands clean of this tired gimmick to focus on a new tired gimmick. Christmas season is coming, and I am going all in, baby. So skip this strange movie about murdering children to grow crops and wait for my upcoming recommendations.
Living Snowmen.
Hey, I did recommendations first. You're encroaching on my.
We can steal from each other. We all own 1/4 of the show.
I'm gonna do Living Scarecrow or Living Snowman if I have. You know.
Living Snowman.
Jack Frost 2. There's other Jack Frost where he's not evil. Yeah, like
so
Jack Frost
second
meets the
exclusive
Wolfman
of the show though is there's no good Scarecrow movies. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there was.
No, I've already recommended them. That's the problem.
Return to Oz. It's the greatest living Scarecrow movie.
We have to put
Scarecrows is excellent, and Dark Knight of the Scarecrow was good too.
But we are all out of show. But we want to thank
God.
our guest Kandice Martellaro for joining us. Thank you, Kandice.
Thank you so much. Actually, really quick before we take off,
Yeah,
I realize I've screwed up everything. My
Let's do it again from the top.
The real recommendation I want to give.
Oh, sure.
Is, thank you. After I moved on, I was like, no, I have a better one. Follow the House of Usher. I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan. I thought this held up with other Mike Flanagan work that I love so much in its gothic succession. I love it. That's what I recommend.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, I was thinking about watching that one as well anyway, because it's all Edgar Allan Poe, right?
Yes. Yeah, every episode is an Edgar Allan Poe.
But like remixed.
Yes,
right.
Of course. Yeah.
Kind of, and all sort of incorporating the same characters, right? So it's just...
Yeah.
So it's like today there's a heart under the floor, you know, but right? Like, but it's not Telltale Heart or something.
Right. It's I mean, like each Edgar Allan Poe story is thematically what's going on in that episode,
Right.
but there's an overall story that it feeds into.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's like I said, it's like Gothic Succession, where it's
Cool.
I will say no more so I don't spoil it, but that's essentially what it is.
Yep. And will it get another season?
No.
Nevermore.
With that, we are all out of show. I'm Scaretaker. Get down into hell.
I'll be back. We're boarding the gates.
Thank God.
But we are all out of show, and we're all out of Hell on Reels. But we hope everyone else will join us again as well, as the Reels of Justice just regularly keep turning.
Count it.
Fillings.
Sclusy. It should have been Sclusy.
It should have been Sclusy.
Should have been Sclusy.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.